Live?
That is a day.
Yeah.
It's live?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you guys today? It's Dara and Katie outside Nenagh District Court after another waste of time of a court appearance. But fortunately, we were able to develop a whole bunch of cash for Gardaí and judges, court clerks all along the way. So it wasn't a total waste of time. At least they've made some money out of it. I'm sure the DPP is making money today. It isn't known the number of labour hours we have accumulated today, and between diesel and time off work and massive amount of money involved in just today. But we appeared, and again the Gardaí have no evidence, and they have again said this to the judge. And despite our protest that the case should be dismissed because they hadn't complied in a reasonable amount of time with providing the evidence, the judge saw fit to adjourn it to the 3rd of March. So, we've got to take the judge's ruling in good faith. But I'm quite happy with the way things went. Yet again, the Gardaí have failed to provide evidence. You would think it would be a pretty straightforward thing to issue statements and the evidence they have against us. But no, apparently it's not. But we have been assured that once the evidence becomes available, all of it will be handed over. So I'm quite happy to say at this stage that it's now time that the fight back begin. So these Gardaí have wasted all of our time for long enough. Now it's time that we start to attack the Gardaí with charges. In this case, you lawfully attack to return the favour, and let's get these Gardaí into court. I had the occasion to meet a very intelligent woman last week, and she had informed me that when she went to a roadblock recently, the Garda asked her about her business, what her lawful business was. And she reliably informed the Garda that amongst other lawful reasons for her journey, that one of the lawful reasons for her journey was to inform that Garda that he was breaking the law. She then said to that Garda that she required to speak to his superintendent because he was breaking the law by interrupting her lawful passage and by interrupting the lawful passage of everybody in the queue behind her. And although the protests went in from the Garda, the lady stood ground and insisted that the superintendent be brought to the scene, which anybody can insist upon if you believe a Garda is committing a crime or acting outside the Garda Code of Conduct. You are more than within your rights to request that Garda superintendent make an appearance at the scene. And while they were waiting for the Garda superintendent to come to the scene, the lady in question instructed the Garda to gather the names and addresses of everybody in the roadblock queue behind her, because those people were witnessing her crime and she would require them to testify in court. So I thought it was a very useful use of her time. Amongst her other lawful business that she was doing that day, she was doing her shopping and she was going to see her mother, her ill mother, and she had a few things to do that day. But one of the lawful reasons was to inform a Garda that they were breaking the law by interrupting you in the course of your lawful business, and by imposing laws that were contrary to our constitution, and that Garda was in breach of his oath, clearly in breach of his oath. And as our Taoiseach said yesterday, that they wouldn't be able to impose the Irish border because it would not comply with EU directive about open free travel. So what Mr. Varadkar has demonstrated to the Irish people is twofold. First, that the laws in this country are illegal, because if Mr. Varadkar and our laws have to comply with EU directives, then our laws have to comply with our constitution, because our constitution comes ahead of EU directives. At least so far it does. Now, that may not stay that way for much longer if you don't get up off your backside and come out and sort this out. But the other thing that Mr. Varadkar proved with that statement, I've lost my train of thought there now, but there is another, so it was the EU directives, and well, I'm afraid you'll have to tune in for another video so I recall that. But Katie is here as well. I'm sure you'd like to say something, Katie.
guys. Thanks for all your support. The Gardaí have disappeared. Can you just show the door?
Oh, yeah.
There was 5 or 6 of them there a few moments ago, and the prosecuting sergeant was actually refusing the public entry again to the district court on, what date is it? The
27th.
27th of January 21 in Nenagh. I asked the Garda on the door if he was on his oath 3 times, and he refused to answer, and I informed him he was breaking the law and in direct contravention with Article 34 of this little blue book, the Irish Constitution, and the Gardaí do not care. So
He said that we're breaching COVID regulations, yet when we went into the courtroom, there were signs all over the courtroom saying that the maximum occupancy of the courtroom was 21 people. There were 6 people in the courtroom. So they had no regulation, even though the occupancy, I don't know what directive that is, but the occupancy wasn't even a quarter of the occupancy that was recommended by the guideline. So they had zero basis for not allowing our witnesses and members of the public to enter the courtroom. There were only 6 people in there. So that means another 15 people could be here today in this courtroom witnessing what's going on inside the courtroom, keeping them accountable. And indeed, our witnesses often have evidence that they want to, that may be necessary in a court case. Or we travel together for reasons, because we observe each other and we witness what's going on around each other.
And justice must be seen to be done, and today it was not.
Today it was not. There was no court reporter. There was no member of the public. And is there a flag here today?
There is.
There is a flag.
There.
Oh, I believe it has to be displayed above the courtroom, though. But anyway.
Well, the EU flag's there.
Yeah, indeed. It does make a difference, I guess, But that's another thing too. We exposed last week that the Irish government had issued Directive 296, mask wearing in public or in certain business premises, and part of that directive included an exemption for post offices, credit unions, and banks. And of course, I made a big stink about this last week in the social media, and yesterday. My point was that because the government had made an exemption for post offices, credit unions, and banks, obviously because they don't want a person to be able to wear a mask and go in and rob the bank, So I made the point that it appeared that the government cared more about the money inside the bank than they did about people's lives. Because very few people have died in bank robberies in the last decade. I don't think anybody has died in a bank robbery in the last decade. So there's no real reason that the life that could be lost in a bank robbery could supersede the life of the tellers. But yesterday, on the 26th of January, the government made an amendment to that section and removed the section from the Article 296, Instrument 296, that gave an exemption to wearing a mask in banks, credit unions, and post offices. They didn't tell anybody, of course. When they wanted to get your vote in order to maintain their cabal's corrupt hold on power in this country, they had no problem sending you a flyer in the door of your house into every letterbox in the country. But when they amend these ridiculous COVID legislation, it's beyond them somehow to send out a letter to everybody to tell them that they've amended these ridiculous laws. If you now look at the website, if you have that capacity, which many people don't, it's completely intractable. These laws are so complicated and so amended and changed and chopped and turned. No one can make head nor tails of them now anymore. Even if they had access to the internet, which a lot of people don't, and even if they had the language capabilities to interpret these regulations, which are quite difficult to interpret. So, the vast majority of people in Ireland, or at least a huge majority of people in Ireland, wouldn't have a clue what's going on with COVID regulations. And I can also say that most Gardaí have no idea what's going on with COVID regulations. I've had numerous interactions. They don't seem to have a clue. They don't seem to have a clue about the regulations. There is no requirement to wear a mask inside the door of this courtroom. There's no requirement to wear a mask inside the courtroom. There's no requirement to do anything in an Irish courtroom other than show up, of course, which in fact they also tried to deny us that yet again. They sent out a letter the Gardaí sent us a letter telling us not to show up today. So if you have a court case and you receive a letter from the Gardaí telling you not to show up, ignore that letter and show up. Because if you don't, what they will do is they will try to hear the case in your absence. So these are the kind of dirty tricks that we're paying our Gardaí prosecutors and Gardaí themselves to opt. That's justice in Ireland, according to the Irish Gardaí, is that they could hold a case in your absence after telling you not to show up because of COVID regulations, which in itself is illegal. So, corruption was rife in this country for many years. It's hard to imagine where we are now. I can't imagine the state of our legal system with all this carry on. All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you. See you.